So this is class 8 of U.S. and Texas history. Well, not history, I'm sorry. Government. Sorry, YouTubers. And how many of you realize that I finally took 2 days. It's not that long, but it's longer than I wanted to take. I finally got up the video. You realize that. You realize that. Did you watch it? Put a smiley face on it. A like? No, you don't have to. Don't worry about that. I'm joking. Okay? Just don't say bad things. That's I don't care. Your character shreds. I don't care. As long as it's there for you guys to refer back to. As a matter of fact, this would have been, you wouldn't have been here on Tuesday, right? Who was here on Tuesday? None of you. You were here on Tuesday. So you don't have to watch that video.
Wait, when did you post it? Because I looked.
It got posted last night.
Okay.
It took a while.
I didn't see it till I didn't see it get posted till 6 a.m. today.
That's right. Well, okay. It was up last night on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
But it was not. I did not give you an announcement about it till this morning because I was in bed at the time. So here's a trick. If you and I know this is a trick in 2 ways. It's a trick to, for you to know it's up before I put the announcement. Just subscribe to the channel, and then when I put it in, once it's up, even if it's the middle of the night, you get, YouTube telling you, hey, this guy, Worldview with Jenna Holzer, that's what the channel I think it is, just uploaded a new video. So that's a trick to get you guys to get early. It's also a trick that gets you to subscribe, which helps my algorithm, so all my other cool videos get seen. But whatever it takes, it's kind of like, there you go. So what's today besides class 7? Today is September the 17th. And so today's a big day for what is today known as? It's a holiday. And you're like, well, why are we in school? Well, because it's not that big of a holiday. And so much so it's not even on my Apple computer. But it is in your book, that little book you're reading right there, September 17th, right? What happened on September 17th, 1787? They signed the Constitution. It's Constitution Day. Now you could write that down. I probably won't test on it. Not because it's not, well, write it down. Come on,
You're judging me for writing it down.
Look, it's okay to judge. I wasn't negatively judging you. I'm just saying you don't have to write it down. But if you do, it's a good thing to know, but it's not, the contents, the principles of the Constitution are, in my opinion, far more important than the memorization of dates. History, dates are important because you see the progression of thought, that has been espoused throughout the ages, the rise and fall of empires, the changing of philosophies, political philosophies that underlie the political realm, the body politic. Those are all important to see the progression. But it is the philosophies, the undergirding philosophies that I believe are important. That's what makes the dates important. The dates don't make those beliefs and principles important. It's the principles that make the dates important. So for our class, we got to talk about, the principles that undergird our system of government and the specifics. And of course, we're going to put in some dates. But keep in mind, if we're just memorizing dates and it's like, that's no fun. We want to get to the meat of why we are here and why those dates are important. So let me read a little something here about the U.S. Constitution being ratified. I just pulled this off of history.com, and it it's a History Channel, I think it is, yeah. And I like some of this stuff, some of it I don't like, so, you know, the alien stuff they put on there and all that. By alien, I mean extraterrestrials, not people illegally crossing the border from Canada, okay? You know they come that way too, right? Okay. Why would a Canadian come to America?
Warmer weather.
Huh?
Warmer weather.
Yeah, that's true, I would too. Healthcare. We have better, they have, socialized healthcare, but because they have socialized healthcare, it's harder for them to get certain surgeries or procedures. Where we have open, free market healthcare, they can come down here and get stuff that the government does not allow them to get up there. Right? When the government provides something for you, for example, healthcare, what do? They govern it, because that is what governments do. They govern things. And so if they're gonna provide for you your healthcare, they're gonna govern it, much like this public school system. Anybody go to a private school here, besides this one? So y'all went to public schools, right?
Yeah.
You went where the state told you to go, correct? You didn't decide what public school to go to.
No.
The city did.
Mm.
Houston ISD or wherever you were. They decided you live in this part, this is the school you will go to. Now imagine that being your doctor. You live in this district, therefore you will go to this district hospital. Interesting, right? So if you live in the bad part of town, you go to that school, which may or may not be a good school. You live in the bad part of town, you go to that hospital, whether or not that be a good hospital or not, right? And then the government says you cannot change because you live in, you know, these are the teachers you will take. So I'm part of government healthcare because I am a veteran, so I go to the doctor at the VA, right? So they tell me what doctor I see. And I say, I don't like that doctor. You know what they say? Who cares? You're not paying for this. So anyway, Canadians will come down for that reason. But in the sense of aliens, right? History Channel has shows on aliens, and I don't like that. And by aliens, I don't, like I said, I mean extraterrestrials. Beings from outer space. Anyway, circled all the way back around. So according to this, New Hampshire becomes the 9th and last necessary state to ratify the Constitution. We'll talk about the ratification. The ratification of the Constitution is basically making it official, okay? Makes it the law of the land, the official government of the, quote, United States of America now. Not the little United States of America, but the United States of America, right? The country now. Thereby making it the law of the land. All right, by 1786, defects in the post-Revolutionary War Articles of Confederation were apparent. We already talked about that. Such as lack of central authority over foreign and domestic commerce. Congress endorsed a plan to draft a new constitution. And on May 25th, 1787, the Constitutional Convention convened at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Little note of that, this school is going to be building a replica of Independence Hall. A guy named Morris gave us, last name that is, and you may see his name on some of the buildings around here, right? Very, very, very wealthy man, has given us a lot of money. So a lot of the reason we are able to have a school here called HBU is because of very wealthy people. Very wealthy people are not necessarily very greedy people. Sometimes most of the time, they give money to great causes, okay? Sometimes they give them to bad causes, but that's another story. In this case, I think it's a good cause. And Morris has decided to give us $10 million towards building of a replica of Independence Hall, which will also have to be a bigger version of that because we're in Texas, and because in Texas we do all things bigger. But more than that, if we're actually going to use this building for anything other than, hey, look at that replica, we have to have offices in it and classrooms in it. So we're going to be like, the front end's going to look like Independence Hall, and the back end's going to be looking more like a square box that holds a bunch of professors' offices and classrooms. but it will be really, really cool. So that's in the future. How many of you are freshmen here? And you're a senior. Sorry, you're not gonna see it. Unless we start next year. We were supposed to start this year. Building it. But COVID, I think, kind of got in the way. They decided to build a Chick-fil-A over there instead. Anyway. And you're a freshman?
I'm technically a junior.
You may see it. You may see the construction of it. And you could come back for homecoming. And since you live in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll see it. Come back. Maybe we can get you to do some grad work here.
Where is it going?
Where is it going?
Yeah.
You know, I you know where the parking lot is by the gym we have?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Like behind it.
somewhere around there. I have my ideas of where it should be, but I think it should be where the gym is. I think we should tear down the gym. It's not a great gym. We need to build that other gym, the big one, over where all that grass is, where they're gonna build the hockey rink. All right, moving on. All right. So on September 17th, 1787, that would be today, a couple hundred years ago, and plus some years. After 3 months of debate, moderated by convention president George Washington. By the way, they brought him in to bring in legitimacy. They're like, how do we get this, make people serious about this thing, right? Well, they got George, who everybody liked, and so if he decided to come, they'll all come, right? So they, the new U.S. Constitution, which created a strong federal government with an intricate system of checks and balances, which we will discuss today, was signed by 38 of the 41 delegates present at the conclusion of the convention. Test question. Did 100% of the delegates sign the Constitution? The answer would be no, or true or false. 41 out of 41 delegates signed the Constitution. False, right? So it wasn't unanimous, that's the point, and there was a reason for that, okay? As dictated by Article 7, okay, that out of the 7 articles of the Constitution, the 7th, the document would not become binding until it was ratified by 9 of the 13 states, okay? Beginning on December 7th, 5 states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, ratified it in quick succession. However, the other states, especially Massachusetts, opposed the document. Why? Well, it failed to reserve undelegated powers to the states and lacked constitutional protection of basic political rights such as freedom of speech, religion, and the press. Okay? So a lot of this had to do with the Bill of Rights, which was not there. In February 1788, a compromise was reached under which Massachusetts and other states would agree to ratify the document with the assurance that amendments would be immediately proposed. The Constitution thus was narrowly ratified in Massachusetts, followed by Maryland and South Carolina. On June 21st, 1788, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify the document. There you go, it needed 9 of how many? 13, right? And it was subsequently agreed that government under the U.S. Constitution would begin on March 4th, 1789. In June, Virginia ratified the Constitution, followed by New York in July. On September 25th, 1789, you'll have to know all this, that's a joke. The first Congress of the United States adopted 12 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and sent them to the states for ratification. 10 of these amendments were ratified in 1791. In November 1789, North Carolina became the 12th state to ratify the Constitution. Rhode Island, which opposed federal control of currency, was critical of compromise on the issue of slavery, resisted ratifying the Constitution until the U.S. government threatened to sever commercial relations with the state, meaning they would starve them in a sense. On May 29th, 1790, Rhode Island voted by 2 votes to ratify the document, and the last of the original 13 colonies joined the United States. Today, the U.S. Constitution is the oldest written constitution in operation in the world. Interesting, huh? Anything interesting that in this that stood out to you? Nothing. It's the oldest in the world. Should we keep it? Just under glass to look at. If you would change it, remember what's the original position of the Declaration of Independence? That governments are erected by men to secure these rights, these natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How many of you agree with that proposition? That governments are erected by men, the consent of the governed, to secure the rights of mankind. Go ahead.
What?
Yeah, you just went like that.
Oh, no, you said how many agree.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, oh, a question. I get so excited when I get questions because that's participation. That tells me you're interested. So you all agree with that. Nobody disagrees with it. Does anybody know? Any of you? Somebody's gonna disagree, but they're on the other side of the camera, meaning they're watching it, and they'll be like, I disagree with that, but they're not gonna be able to say anything. But ask yourself, if you don't have rights, then what are governments for? Besides power, to do what you want, there's rights and will, right? All right, now how many of you would change our form of government? Here, let me ask you a better question. How many of you believe that the government is doing a better job than no government is doing? Like if we had no government, right? Okay, so it's good that we have this government.
Yes.
None of you would just say, let's just get rid of government. Are there any other forms of government you think would better secure the rights of man? Because right now there's a debate. Now, of course, keep in mind, communism, which many are fighting for right now, is based off of Marxism, which is atheism. Atheism is part of Marxism, okay? And imagine this, that if atheism is true, then there are no endowed rights because God doesn't exist to endow man with rights, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created, right? Created has to do with God. All men are created. We're certain unalienable rights, such as the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? That man has been endowed by these. He talks about nature's God, the God of nature, and nature's God. So if God doesn't exist, there's no rights for governments to secure. So if we're going to go, well, okay, the biggest competitor out there on the world stage for forms of government is socialism, which is another word for political Marxism, okay? And the USSR was a socialist, right, republic. China, is a communist regime. And do they allow religious belief? To an extent. Can you be in the Communist Party? Can you be a voting member? If you're registered because you have to register to be a believer in some sort of God, religious citizen. They don't allow you to be in the Communist Party. So not all citizens get a vote. They have a one-party system there called the Communist Party, which is scary. It's communism. But there are members of our own Congress who are openly Marxist, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. Some would argue that Kamala Harris, and I mispronounced her name on purpose because a lot of people took offense, to people mispronouncing Kamala. I used to think it was Kamala, and there was an old wrestler in the 80s called Kabbalah or something. He was a big, huge guy, you know. Anyway, but that doesn't make it perfect, right? Just because it's better than communism as securing the rights of man, okay, that doesn't make it perfect. And it really wasn't perfect. Well, maybe the document, the principles are great, even if in practice they were not at the time. Does that make sense? Keep in mind there was a debate over the existence of slavery at the time of the Constitution. And it took a long time for that to be changed. So America was less perfect than it is today. I hope you think so. Does anybody disagree with that? I know some would. Not out of you 5. 4. This class is so full with the pandemic. It's hard to count. I think it's more perfect, but it is not perfect. By more perfect, I think we just mean closer to perfect. Can we ever be perfect? No, we cannot. Once you have a blemish, you can be perfect. Right? Once there's a stain upon you, that's an imperfection. Our history is blemished. We have a few chinks in the armor. Does that mean we should not change it since we're better than we were? And by change, I mean amend, not get rid of. See, there's a difference. Alter or abolish. Is our government system right now worthy of keeping? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
You say yes, you say you're thinking about it. I mean, it's a worthwhile thing to ask. I'm afraid that if it changes, my wife and I are discussing moving to another country out of fear of what it would be replaced with. What would we replace it with? Where will you go? I mean, what kind of government is better than one that can be changed? Altered, that is. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about things. Now, we do know certain things need to be changed. I know that for a fact. Murders take place every day, whether they be by the good guys, or alleged good guys, or the bad guys who are not even alleged. They're just like, I'm a bad guy, and they're willing to be called the bad guys, right? And then you got the guys, I'm a good guy, but oh, by the way, I'm going to kill you too. Those are injustices. We admit that. Those have to change. Those are, we also admit that certain, professors need to make billions too, and that's a total lie. We don't, right? We make what we deserve. Is there anything in America you'd like to change or keep it? Is there anything you'd like to keep? Is it worth keeping, and are there things worth changing?
There's certain stuff that we can change, like it's happened recently.
What happened recently?
Like all the Black Lives Matter stuff.
What are they doing?
What do you mean?
What are those guys doing that we need to change?
Like,
walking into restaurants with megaphones and interrupting their dinner?
I'm sorry?
You like walking into restaurants and with megaphones and interrupting people's dinners and beating up people?
No, not like that. Like, just
we gotta
everybody
keep
needs to
that
be
part,
treated
okay.
equally.
We need to treat them equally,
Yeah.
don't we?
Doesn't
Are you
seem like
racist?
it.
You don't treat them equally?
No, just some people don't. I'm not racist.
Who are these people? I want to know.
The people of America.
Which ones? Right, that's right. That's the problem, is we don't know who they are. Can't name them by name. We know they're out there, but look, the KKK really exists. They're real racist, white racist groups out there. Okay? Is that the majority of people?
No, but it's still happening a lot.
A lot? How many KKK members do you
Oh,
know?
not the KKK, but like
The
the
Kappa Kappas, that fraternity group on our campus. We'll talk about the KKK, who started it, what it was there for. It's a big issue because it's part of our constitutional history. The political party started it, okay? It was their part of their organization for political power in the South. So it's very important. That needed to be changed. There are things that do need to be changed. Should we allow groups like that to exist? The answer is unfortunately yes. You want to change them through love so that they could love, all men are created equal. Jesus said, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, right? These are all principles by which I think we should win the hearts and minds so that when I see you as a human, you are human, I love you as a human. It'd be nice to eradicate abortion, not by law, but by just knowledge that we're killing our own children, right? We'd love to do that, I hope. But to legislate love, can you make people love you by law?
No.
You cannot. You cannot say, thou shalt love me, and if you don't love me, I'm going to punish you by law. It's unfortunate, but we want people to love people for the right reasons. Because you just can't do it, right? But now what we can say is, by law, you cannot hurt people, right? And you cannot create systems that hurt people. I think that's the key. You're right, I'm not gonna take over and say, I'm not gonna allow this type of person with whom I politically disagree with to not be able to have a job. How's that? And that happens in the education system where they say, where the public schools, especially public colleges, are monopolized by certain political groups that say other political groups will not be able to work with us or for us and ought not be able to, and they will do whatever they can to keep that from happening. Okay, should that be allowed? Right, not in the public school system, you'd think. You think that should be just equally representative. Ideologically speaking, not just racially speaking, but or having to do with race, gender, and all that, but also ideologically, we should have full representation of all different groups of people. Well, anyway, I think the document itself is worth keeping, even if the application has not always been perfect. Martin Luther King Jr., right, said it perfectly. What document did he use in his I Have a Dream speech? He was using a particular document. He didn't have it in hand when he wrote the speech. By the way, he wrote the speech, gave the speech to a basketball player. Handwritten. So there's a college basketball player. He said, here. The college basketball player says, thank you, not knowing what he had in his hand. Now he knows what he had in his hand. He's like, oh, got this cool speech. It's probably worth quite a bit. I'm sure the National Archives, if they don't have their mitts on it yet, would certainly love to have it. But nonetheless, what document, American document, did he refer back to when he said that America has written a blank check? It was the Declaration of Independence. He referred back to our original principles, stating that the black man was issued a check that was returned with insufficient funds. Now, how many of you write checks nowadays? Probably none of you. Back then, we had to write checks. Nowadays, it's all electronic. It's pathetic. In a good way, don't get me wrong. It's just amazing what we used to do. You'd write a check and give it to somebody, and they would trust that the bank had the money, your money, in their account. your account when you took it to the bank, and the bank would give you money. But if you took it to the bank and you gave it to the bank and the bank says, oh, this guy's got no money in his account, I can't cash this for you, comes back insufficient funds. And thus you would have to go back to the person who wrote you the check and say, you still owe me this money somehow, and they'd go into debt collection and all that. Well, that's exactly what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying. You got this check here called the Declaration of Independence, which suggests that all men are created equal and endowed with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's a promissory note that has come back empty for the black man. Now I'm paraphrasing. I'm not quoting him, but it's a pretty dang good paraphrase. I mean, not to pat myself on the back. Okay. Excellent visual. And so, what is he asking? He's saying we need to get rid of this form of government. No, he's appealing to the government. To do what? To fulfill its own principles upon which it stands. So it's a good thing to keep. He didn't think we should get rid of it. He thought we should apply it. Did you catch that? Not even alter it as much, which it was, but apply it. Apply the principles rather than just get rid of them. We talked about the Constitution then the other day, and we talked about the plans, the Virginia plan versus the New Jersey plan, which one seemed to be stronger. We talked about some compromises. For those of only one of you did not see the lecture from last week. That means you three saw it, but you did not, right? But we talked the video.
No, I saw it.
You saw it. Who didn't see it? Oh, wait, only two of you saw it. Okay, so those of you, we talked about the compromises, and what are these are very important. To get these states together to create this new government, they had the Great Compromise, which had to do with the creation of the Senate. The creation of the Senate gave strength and power to the smaller states so that the states with more population, a larger population, couldn't just run roughshod over the desires of those in the less populated states. Okay, so tyranny of the masses would not ensue. So in our contemporary debate, it'd be like saying we in Texas don't want California and we don't want New York to dictate what we do here in Texas, okay? And so the Senate's good. That keeps us safe. Okay, and especially keeps smaller states safe. But on the other hand, wouldn't that be unfair if everybody gets 2 votes in Congress? Then you get a place like Idaho, which has very few people in it, and they get 2 votes, and New York, which has millions of people in it, and they only get 2 votes for their millions, and these guys with their hundreds of thousands get 2 votes. Well, these guys are some pretty powerful people then, right? So then we have the House of Representatives. That is the people's house, where it turns out to be by population, okay? So the more populated the state is, the more representatives they have in the House of Representatives. But everybody, whether it be Alaska, Idaho, they get 2 senators, okay? In a sense, there's equality, and in a sense, there's representation. And that was a great compromise. Now watch the video. It discusses it more in length. All right? The other compromise was the 3/5 compromise to get the slave-owning states in there. They were not going to sign on to this Constitution unless they had representation for what they would call inhabitants. That was the word that was used. Not persons or humans. Why? Because all humans have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we start calling them humans or persons, and guess what? Then we look like hypocrites, or we reveal to ourselves that we're hypocrites, right? When I say ourselves, my family was not there. My family, neither side of my family was in America at the time. So don't blame me or my family. One was in Germany, and they left before Nazism, so they can't be blamed for that either, okay? The other one had to do was kind of Hispanic, so she's somewhere Spain. Anyway, the 3/5 compromise went something like this. So the South wanted representation for the population because they were worried that the North would be, again, have more representation because they have a larger population. So they said, well, let us count our slaves as citizens so that we could get more representatives. And they said, oh, come on, man. You know that, yeah, right, they're getting represented. Are they voting for these people? No. Well, anyway, so what they did is they compromised, and they said for every 5 slaves, you will get 3, they will count as 3 men. Okay? 3 people. Thus, you would get, for every 100, probably easier if we did 150. I'm going to embarrass myself with my math, right? 3/5 of 150 turns out to be what? 30 takes 8, 90? Is it 90? Anyway, you get a certain number of citizens to be represented. Okay? Now, what would you have done? Is that fair? Now, what would truly be fair and just would be say, okay, slavery's done, it's over. Okay? Or the slaves get to vote. That'd be fair. Okay, but that's 2020 talking. We're talking 1787. 1787, where there's been no society on earth that I know of that did not have slavery. And that America's not the inventor of slavery, we're the abolishers of slavery. Has anybody ever heard that? Now, the practice of slavery is a blemish on all civilizations. You understand that? But it is monumental that America was the nation that actually got rid of it. That is the anomaly in history. That there is a civilization that got rid of slavery. Ironically, we haven't gotten rid of slavery. Slave trade is alive and well, okay? Prostitution is all over America. In fact, right down the street is the largest human trafficking hub. We're talking less than a mile in America, Bissonnette.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking women are being brought from all over the world and trafficked here.
There used to be a corner right by the Galleria and the Starbucks and the Container Store. That used to be a big area where they used to switch them off in cars.
Isn't that horrible? It's horrible.
And also pick up girls.
Apparently, I did not know this until recently. A lot of the nail salons are fronts for human trafficking organizations. And it turns out these groups are not necessarily just into doing nails. I did not know that. I just learned this. Point being, going back to this, they had to make a compromise because at the time, the slave trade, even though it was a hotly debated issue at the time, right? They had to cease trading from Africa, okay? But that did not free the slaves, okay? And it would only take a civil war to do that. So America fought and killed and died, killed their own people in order to end this trade, which is a just war in my opinion, okay? And to get these guys in the Union, if it was gonna work at all, they had to make a compromise, kind of like a bargain with the devil. okay? And so what ended up happening is they made the 3/5 compromise, which is clearly not, once the slaves were freed and became citizens, that compromise was over anyway, because now one man equals one, each man equals a man. Anyway, so that was the 3/5 compromise. Watch the video. We talked about the first 3 articles of the Constitution. The first 3 articles out of 7 had to do with the branches of government, and the branches of government. The first branch of government that it discussed, and here was the assignment. There was an assignment. Read the first 3 articles of the Constitution, okay, and do the who, what, where, why, when bullet point type assignment. And I don't know if I told everybody, was it the other day that I let them in on the secret that all the writing assignments are going to be of that nature: who, what, where, when, why, how, bullet pointing them. Some of them will be greater than others because they will give more who's or what's or why's. And the most important question is the why is this important? That's what I'm always looking for. Why is this important? Okay, not just why did they do this, but why is it important now? Okay.
Also to like you personally.
To us as a nation, to the world, to you personally. Some of us is gonna be more personal, okay? Might be more personal to somebody when we talk about, when we get to the amendments, we're talking about freedom of religion. It might be the freedom of speech, right? If you're gonna be a journalist, maybe, freedom of the press might be important to you personally. But to all of us, these are important to us corporately, okay? So some of us have more skin in the game in some of these questions, okay? But it is important to us corporately, all of these. Okay, so what was the first article in the Constitution? It describes Congress. And I made note that that's intentional. They talked about Congress first because that's where laws are made. It's the most important because that's where the citizens have the greatest voice. Do we have the greatest voice in the House or in the Senate? Mm-mm. Neither?
Oh, I thought you were, okay, never mind, I misunderstood the question. Sorry.
Well, I mean, so originally, in the original draft of the Constitution, representatives of the states, okay, determined who was in the Senate. Now it's by vote. It's just by popular vote. So I vote for my senators, be it Ted Cruz, Cornyn, John Cornyn. Those are our 2 senators in Texas, if you didn't know that. Or whomever is running against him. Beto, Robert Francis O'Rourke is his real name, but he goes by Beto. Was running against Ted Cruz. A lot of money from the outside was trying to unseat Ted Cruz and didn't work out so well. He lost pretty badly. Actually, it wasn't so badly, but it was significant. Anyway, and we also vote on our representatives in the House of Representatives, the People's House, right? Okay, so you have districts. We all live in a district, and whatever district you live in has people running for that district, okay? And those are the people who will represent who you will vote for, and they will represent your will, hopefully. Hopefully. So you vote for them. Okay, that's a house. How old do you have to be in the House of Representatives?
25.
You are correct. How old do you have to be in the Senate?
30.
You don't even have to, you can't see me. And then you got the president. How old do you have to be president?
35.
35, right? So you can be pretty young to be president. That's scary. A lot of people believe that, what's her name? Sandy Cortez, that the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's not old enough to be president, but she would be somebody they're looking at right now, hoping to get her to be the president. And I would be afraid because she is a Marxist. She's openly a Marxist. That's scary. But anyway, those are the ages. So the first article tells you, it makes a distinction between the Senate, it makes a distinction between the House, and it tells you how old you have to be to run for the House, it tells you how old you have to be to run for the Senate. How long are your terms for the House?
2 years.
2 years. That means every 2 years they're always running for office, meaning if you don't like them, well, you can get rid of them really quickly. What about the Senate? A little harder to get rid of them, right? Every 6 years. And they leapfrog, so in the way they do it. So every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election. They do that to create stability. That way, not everybody is up for re-election at once. You don't want change to happen too quickly. That is not good. Nothing ever comes from quick change. Okay? Politically, that is. All right. I think I had a couple questions. So, what do you think about this? Do you think, now, it doesn't say anything about term limits. What do you think? I mean, there are people who've been in the House and people who have been in the Senate 30, 40 years. Joe Biden has been in politics for 50 years. Now, some of that's been as the vice president, but before then he was a senator. What do you think of term limits? That you should only be able to run, how many terms can a president have?
2.
2, that means 8 years. Once you're done, you're done. Okay? What do you think about the other guys? Should they be able to stay in for so long? What are the pros and cons of them staying in? And what are the cons of them staying in?
Pros, I guess, if like you really like them and you vote for them and like you like what they're doing. But I guess cons, if you don't like them.
They're still gonna run, right?
Yeah.
You know they're gonna run. Can I give you one right now? Is there's a lot of money that pours in to these guys' campaigns, right? And so sometimes they'll tell you they're gonna do something, but all this money that gets poured in to get them either elected or re-elected often influences how they decide things. And if they didn't care, since they're out the door anyway, they weren't worrying about their own political hide, so to speak, right? They would be more likely to do the job and not follow the money, okay? Now there's a bad part of that too, because then you get some people who are pretty rash, where they're like, I'm gonna do it and I don't care because I'm not getting reelected. I don't care what the people say because I'm not getting reelected anyway, right? It's kind of like presidents on the way out the door, you get just tons of pardons because pardoning all your buddies isn't going to get you, isn't gonna hurt you because you're not gonna be reelected anyway. If that makes sense to you. You pardon them in your first term and then everybody's like, look at these criminals the guy just pardoned, right? Thousands of them walking the streets, right? And I'm not voting for that guy anymore. But then at the second term, he's like, well, I'm on the way out the door. Oh, by the way, so all these guys are going out the door too. And this is not, by the way, now a lot of people might be going, yeah, that Trump guy's gonna, pardon a bunch of people, right? You can guarantee there's gonna be some pardons handed out, right? Manafort is gonna get pardoned, stuff like that. General Flynn will be pardoned, if he might be pardoned any day now. But I mean, Obama did it, George Bush did it, George Bush Sr. did it, Bill Clinton did a lot of it. So it's not new. It's nothing like, oh my God, can you believe this one guy did it? No, they all do it, okay? You walk out the door, you do the things that, might have been unpopular before. All right, so we talked about the three. So the second one was not, the second article has to do with the presidency. And the presidency has only 2 terms. Now, of course, it discussed the age of the presidency, and it talked about what the president or the executive branch is for. What is the legislative branch for? We already talked, this is just refreshing, so go back and watch the video. It's for creating laws. The second branch is the executive branch, which has to do with executing laws, the enforcement of laws. And the executing of principles, by the way, things that like measures, like if Congress allows certain money to be spent on relief, well, it's the executive branch that goes out and spends it, okay? They allow it, they have power of the what? Purse, right? And then once the president gets that money, or the executive branch gets that money, the executive branch executes. Finally, you have the judicial branch. What does the judicial branch do? They interpret the law. Now, how long are federal judges on the bench? They're on the bench for as long as they behave themselves, as long as they have good behavior. That means if they don't retire, they will stay on there until they die. A particular person on the bench right now, the Supreme Court, is named Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was highly pressured by the Obama administration to retire while he was in office, so that he could replace her with another court pick who would follow the same type of, legal theory that she does, okay? Well, she didn't heed that, and she had probably anticipated Hillary Clinton winning. Now, she's old, and I mean, she's not just old, she's had 3, maybe 4 bouts of cancer. She also fell, broke her hip, so she's not in the best of health, and so she was just recently hospitalized. Her goal is to get through a Trump presidency and into a Democratic presidency so that they could replace her with somebody of the same legal theory underneath her, principles, okay, approach. If she dies or retires while Trump is in office, and there is a Senate majority, conservative Senate majority, that is, then she will be replaced with a conservative judge who will be a strict constitutionalist, and we'll talk about that later. If Trump wins this election, the chance of her, now I'm not pulling a shroud over her, she's certainly a tough bird, okay? 3 bouts of cancer. But it's going to be very hard for her to last that long, given her health and her, her age. Chances of Trump being able to replace, and this is why right now I believe there is so much. There's a fever pitch right now over this election, because I think because you know what's on the line? Roe versus Wade. Abortion could be overturned right now, by the way, possibly. But if Ruth Bader Ginsburg is replaced with a conservative, that will there are 9 justices on the bench. There's already a 5-4 conservative-ish advantage. You put a 6th on there, 6-3, all you got are Sotomayor, Kagan, and dare I say Kennedy, as the I could be wrong on that. I'll get back to it. I think it is with the 3rd liberal on there besides Justice Ginsburg. You could very quickly overturn Roe versus Wade, and that is one of the hottest topics or issues in America that causes people to get really upset, okay? And so I believe that's a major issue going on, and I think that is really one of the reasons there's such a huge debate going on. Anyway, So there's the justice system, the judicial branch. So what does the judicial branch do? Judges laws, judges them against what? The Constitution. And asks the question whether the law is constitutional or not. And it also judges people or practices against the law. If the law is constitutional, it asks the judicial branch, that is, not necessarily the Supreme Court, but the branch of government will ask, say, this is a law, did you break the law, or did you uphold the law? Okay? So it could judge persons against the law, it could judge contracts against the law, it could judge practices against the law, and it could judge the law. And what does it judge the law against? The Constitution. Now, if the Constitution is the law, so to speak, against which we judge laws, or so to speak, against what does the Constitution get judged? And it's by none of the branches of the government. It's by the people. By the natural law. Remember? The law above the law above the Constitution. Well, the Constitution sets up these three branches, and these three branches do have certain powers. There are expressed powers, okay? And there are implied powers. We're not going to talk about the implied powers today. But I am going to talk about two powers, one power being the expressed powers, and the second being police powers. Expressed powers. Expressed powers are in the Constitution for the federal government are foreign affairs and national security. That's pretty simple, isn't it? If there is nothing else that the federal government does, they should at least conduct foreign affairs and direct national security. Now, those are pretty broad terms, okay? Foreign affairs can include wars, treaties, trade, I'm sure there are other things we could come up with. Nafta, right? What's the NAFTA? North American Free Trade Agreement. What did Trump say about it? You don't know. Before he was the president, he said, this is a horrible deal. Canada and Mexico are taking us to the cleaners. We got a bad deal. They're getting all the money and we're paying it all. So what did he say? If I'm president, I'm going to get rid of it. He is the president, right? What did he do? Well, he's a liar, right?
Or he didn't.
Well,
I don't know.
people call him a liar. He's a liar. Everything comes out of his mouth. Well, the problem isn't that he's a liar. The people who don't like him because he lies. They don't like him because of the things he tells the truth about. And he said he'd get rid of it. And what did he do? Got rid of it. And he replaced it with a different deal. And he made a deal with Canada and with Mexico. Right? That's who was in the NAFTA anyway, the North American Free Trade Agreement, right? Which he didn't find it that fair. He said it wasn't fair, so what they did is they renegotiated it, and they came up with the USMCA, the USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada Agreement. That's not a test. And he, according to all of them, at least according to many people, this is a much more equitable agreement. Could the state of New York do this? No, because that's outside the scope of their authority. Because it is the federal government's job to conduct foreign affairs. Trade agreements are foreign affairs. So, It wasn't war, was it? No, but it was done in the interest of America, so that the farmers of America, when trading with these countries, were not taxed on all their goods. You know, when we send out goods, we produce goods in America, other countries will say, you can sell your goods here, but we're gonna put a big tax on them so that our goods that are produced here can compete better. Does that make sense to you guys? That's the tariffs. You've heard of this? And so what that does is it makes it harder for us to sell our goods, but then they sell their goods to us and they say, well, we won't, you know, have this agreement with you if you tax us. So they were taxing us, but we couldn't tax them, and that's what was unfair about it. Now, it's more equitable, where we're not getting taxed as much and they're not, and we're able to tax them, okay? Where they're not, you know, where there's not an imbalance here. So apparently Mexico was doing that to us, and and so was Canada, and we're like, hey, why can't we tax you guys? And so we're in a bad deal. All right, well, that's one thing they do. We're gonna talk about, you know, the checks and balances if we have time, okay? Now, police powers. Police powers are given to the smaller governments. Remember, America doesn't have just one government, does it? We are citizens of the United States of America. We are also citizens of the great state of Texas. I used to be a citizen of the small city called West University Place, which is right down in the medical district of Houston, right? Does anybody know about that? So it's like this little city in the middle of this big city. Well, we moved out of that small city, which is a pretty quaint little town, but the traffic was too much for us. And we moved to the big city, Houston, which is really just down the street, okay? So I'm a citizen of Houston, I'm a citizen of Texas, I'm a citizen of the United States. So I fall under those three governments, okay? The police powers, okay? You have the express powers on the one hand, national security and foreign affairs, and then we have police powers. Police powers have to do not just with the police, but the treatment of individual issues, the smaller issues such as health, safety, and welfare, okay? And by welfare, I don't mean checks. I mean the well-being of its citizenry. So is the federal government gonna be in charge of your trash collection? No, the city is, okay? Maybe county. Okay, you were even citizens of counties. Okay, you have county governors, you know, county, not governors, but commissioners and stuff like that. Okay, realms of authority, that's the thing, that's what governments are, different realms of authority, and we find ourselves in many of those. And so the city of West University Place, if I am caught speeding at the great speed of 38.5 miles an hour down Buffalo Speedway, which has a posted speed limit of 30, maybe 35, they will pull me over and they say, sir, can I see your driver's license, registration, and insurance? And I'll say, yes, sir, here they are. I don't know where my registration is. I should probably look into that. But here's my insurance, my driver's license, okay? Oh, wait, my registration's right on my safety tag. That's right. And they'll say, sir, do you know how fast you're going today? Because they always ask you because they want you to admit it, right? And you play stupid. Oh, I don't know, right? And then they go, well, sir, I had you posted it going 38.5 miles an hour. Do you know how fast the speed limit is? You play stupid again, right? You want to be nice, respectful, so they don't say, sir, can I ask you to get out of the car? Turn around, put your hands on your back, right? Sir, can I check you? Just for my safety, that's how they always say it, for their safety, right? You want to make sure that you don't have a knife on you or a gun in your pocket. And then they pat you down, and then you say, I think this is wrong, and then you don't, you know, then you get all mad, then you get put in the back of a squad car, and this has nothing to do with me, I've never, joking. Anyway, then they give you a ticket for what? speeding, of course. They let you get back in the car and they say, "Sir, just stop being a jerk, get in the car." You go, "Okay," because then your tune changes. Anyway, you get a ticket for 8.5 miles over the speed limit. They say, "Sir, this sign here, this is not an admission of guilt. It's merely acknowledging that you received the ticket." On the back, you will see instructions. You can either contest the ticket or you can pay the ticket. It's up to you. If you want to pay the ticket, here's the place where you pay it. If you want to contest it, you can go into stand before the magistrate, right, which is in place of a judge, right, and you could plead your case, and if so, I'll come in and get overtime. It's not a big deal to the police officer. They make money going to court. Okay. You say, "All right, thank you very much. Good day." You go home, tell the wife, "I just got a ticket. Why were you speeding?" You have to go through all that punishment. And then you go, "Well, I'm going to contest this," and you go before the magistrate. You go before that government, and you plead your case. And depending, I tell you what, I went to one court and where the lady was just like, she was the judge, and she's like, "Guilty, guilty." Don't even, she's like, "Get out of my car, just all guilty." Right? Didn't even want to hear anybody, just mean. Another time, this one judge comes in with his robe all, open. He's like, "Hey, how you doing? You're all innocent, okay? We're just gonna roll it on out of here." And everybody's like happy, and they're like, man, love fest by the judge, So it just depends, it depends on the mood of the judge sometimes. Depends on the mood of the police officer. Bad day, who knows what happened. Well, anyway, that's why we go to court. Always go to court, okay? Plead your case. The federal government is not going to pull you over necessarily for speeding, okay? That's the city's job. The federal government's not going to be picking up your trash. That's the city's job. The federal government is not going to set up school districts. That's the city's job. And so these different municipalities, these different realms of government will control different facets of life. They will govern certain areas of life. And they all, by the way, they all have the same three branches in them: executive, legislative, and judicial. The magistrate is clearly the judicial branch. Once I go up, I'm being judged as to whether or not I broke the law, the speeding law, which was created by that by the legislative body of the city. Okay? The police represent what branch of government? The executive. They're executing the law. The judges, magistrates, the judicial branch. Oh, by the way, on Thursday, we're out of time. I was allowed to go over almost 10 minutes and nobody stopped me. So I know this is exciting stuff. It's at least exciting for me. Keep me honest, don't let me go over. So you're all done for today. I guess I didn't get to the separation of powers, but we will get to that. Checks and balances on Tuesday. All right, leave your Constitutional Day gifts on the desk. Hope you had a great Constitutional Day Eve.